Hello guys, so today I'll be showing you how to use self-watering plant pots in your garden. I'll be telling you how they work, the pros, the cons, and how I use them in my garden. So there's two different types we can use. There's one like this, where it's got a string at the bottom of it, and also a cup to hold the water. Then there's one like this one, where there's no strings, but there's a water reservoir underneath, and the plant pot actually goes into the water reservoir. So the way these ones work are quite simple. Is when you put water in the bottom of the cap here, the string that is actually inside the bottom of the cap absorbs the water. What happens is the string that is actually in the plant pot will make it so this much of the soil will stay moist. So this will keep going until this has got no more water left in it. So in theory with this one, the roots of the plant will never actually enter the water itself. While this type here works a little bit different. So this one here has a much greater water reservoir underneath it. And this tray simply just comes out like so. So what happens is the water can build up inside, and the plant pot itself actually sits in the water. So the roots of the plant will go into these holes here, and the roots will be able to absorb water through these little vents that are in the bottom of this plant holder. It also comes with a little level on it, so you should be able to tell how much water is inside the reservoir and how much more water to put in it. So they are both quite similar and both quite simple to use, but they do come with pros and cons. So the pros of using these type of plant pots are if you have a busy work schedule or you're not going to be home for a couple of weeks, they are good because you can literally just leave the water inside the plant pot and you haven't got to worry about the plant pot drying out and the plant not having no water. Also, when it comes to summer and droughts and stuff, this will also be very good because it keeps the moisture in, it keeps the plant cold, and like I said, over time it will keep water in the plant, so you haven't got to rely on the rain. Some plants like it moist, so they like it wet all the time in the plant pot. You just got to make sure you've got the right plants when you put them into these pots. And lastly, due to the water being at the bottom of the plant, it will help the roots grow. Due to the holes at the bottom of the plant pot and the water getting up from underneath, it will try and promote the roots growing down a lot more, so the roots should be stronger at the bottom of the plant. That's if you do it correctly. And one last thing as well, at the bottom of these plants are loads and loads of little holes. Basically, is a good indication as well is when you take these plant pots off, if you can see loads of roots underneath coming from the plant pot, it's a good sign that this plant will need replanting into a bigger pot. But there are also a lot of cons when it comes to these plant pots as well that you have got to be aware about. So one of the biggest things to worry about is the soil moisture at the bottom of these plant pots. Your plant pot at the top could look as dry as that. Underneath, it could be soaking wet. And then you carry on watering it, it's not giving the roots any time to dry out. And this could end up giving it root rot and potentially killing the plant. So that is one negative to these pots, is the fact you cannot tell from the bottom downwards how moist it is and when to stop watering your plants. Because that's why I said earlier to be careful when actually watering your plants, because it could also improve the root growth, but it also could destroy the roots by overwatering. They're not suitable for all plants. For example, this is a little apple tree that I'm growing. If I was to put it in one of these plants here and continue to water underneath, it will slowly end up dying due to the fact it does like to drain its water out. One thing you will have to do when you do get these pots is determine which plants you want to grow and if they will be suited to growing in plant pots that will hold moisture. Or you just got to be very careful on how much water you're giving them. And also lastly, these pots here do cost a little bit more money compared to your actual plastic pots you can get at the garden centre. So that was the pros and the cons, but I'm going to tell you how I actually use them, and it isn't the way that you think. So this is a little lemon tree that I'm growing. Most citrus plants don't like to have water-clogged soil. They like to have basically free-flowing soil to get rid of all the water. Hence why most of these grow in countries where it's not raining a lot, like the UK. But I use this plant pot differently. Instead of trying to use it to try and water the plant, I use it to basically let the water drain to the bottom so it doesn't waterlog the plant. I have removed the string from the bottom of the plant pot, so all it's doing is when it comes to watering the plant, the water will go in and then it simply just fall back out into the bottom into the tray. So what this does, it then makes it so I cannot overwater my little tree that I'm growing. It is weird using a self-watering plant pot to basically stop a plant from overwatering itself. It is a good way of making it so the plant drains very well, and then you can just reuse the water at the bottom and put it back at the top when everything starts drying out again. So I'll use this one in a similar way. Instead of putting soil inside and then planting the plants inside, so what I'll do instead, I'll put some potted plants inside. When it comes to watering the plants, the water will then go inside the plant pots and then enter the reservoir at the bottom, so it cannot overwater the plants that are inside. And then once the little reservoir hits the full mark up here, I can then just simply open the bung at the bottom to drain all the water out. So that is my video on self-watering plant pots. Like I said before, you want to double check what plants like moisture the most before you end up using these, because these will work very well if you do have plants that do like moisture. For me, I have plants that don't like moisture, but I can still use them to benefit the plants. So they have got two uses. They're not just for watering the plants, they can also be used for helping keep drainage down so the plants can end up growing better. So yeah, like I said, this is just a simple video on self-watering plant pots.